Welcome back to Echo Ridge. Today, we're gonna build this awesome little power brick / industrial sauna. Primarily because we have all these disjointed power stations set up throughout the colony. We have one up here, taking care of power for this region. Then we have a smaller one over here that's taking care of the power for this thermal aqua tuner. And as expected, it's not running very often because its cooling requirements really aren't that bad. Now that I'm looking at it though, I really should have put a thermal regulator so I could have made our deep freezer as well. Farms have deep freezers. And then of course we have these two power stations down here. One is running our temporary metal refinery situation, and the other is running most of our colony. Also, I think in the background I still need to do a lot more digging, because in the last few colonies I've had these disjointed power spines where I had transformers sort of in the middle of the base, and all the power lines were going out everywhere. Whereas this time I want to do a nice professional setup, #pro, and bring a giant power spine down one side and have it loop around to the other side. I used to do this a lot more often, but for some reason lately I've just gotten out of the habit. We're going to fix that with this colony. I also have to do some minor updates here and there. For instance, since the new update, I have to replace the wonderful critter drop-offs with another critter drop-off. But interestingly enough, with the update, we also now have a critter pickup. I think this is going to turn puff ranching on its head, so I'm looking forward to playing around with it. We also have to update the drop-off for the pips and the Drecos. Another building that's changed since the most recent update is the gas reservoir. And it's perhaps my favorite change that's happened in quite some time. The wonderful gas buffer tanks now can hold 1,000 kilos. Automation still works the same, and they updated the art style a little bit. It makes me wonder why they update the art style when they made the building changes. Did they not like the old gas reservoir? And just to double check, the inputs and the outputs are still the same. The first step in building our power brick / industrial sauna is figuring out where to put it. The most logical might be right around here, but I don't think this is going to be big enough. I guess I could go a little bit further down. I normally like big old saunas. It'll also make sense to make them conveniently located close to some of the entrances of the base. For instance, this dock set up here, or this dock set up here. We are in suits, so I could bulldoze this entire area. I'd have to deal with this leaky oil fissure, which wouldn't be too big of a deal, and it might even be a small bonus because it would erupt that crude oil at 326 degrees, which would help the sauna keep its heat. I wouldn't be able to go this tall because of the supply teleporter input. I could easily demolish all of this, but I would have to stay away from these two oil reservoirs. So perhaps the biggest we could go, if we include the steam turbine's height requirements under the supply teleporter input, might be something like this. I don't know if that's big enough either. But I do like the idea of making the sauna and wrapping around this leaky oil fissure so all that heat can be absorbed. It'd also be an easy way to tame it and grab some of the oil from it. Now, your leaky oil fissures aren't the end-all be-all for your oil requirements, but what we're more interested in, like I've been saying, is the heat. Another opportunity is to put the sauna in and around this iron volcano. There's a lot more to dig out here, but that iron volcano could provide us a lot of heat as well, and it'd be a great way to tame it. In the end, I think we're going to go over here with the leaky oil fissure. I've put dozens and dozens of metal volcanoes inside of saunas, but I haven't done too much with the leaky oil fissure. So my assumption is you haven't seen it very often either. So step one, we need to build the big box. Oh, we can even build it up against the neutronium to get even more space. Need to leave 3 tiles of space here, and that way we can fit steam turbines over here if need be. We have plenty of igneous rock, so that's the material we're going to use. And we're just going to go straight across. Where are we going to end up over here? I think we already have a ladder here, so I'm just going to extend this ladder up, and then the entrance will be somewhere over here. Now, I do need to build some liquid locks, so I'm not exactly sure where that's going to go yet, but we'll get that figured out too. Probably closest to the entrance as possible would be the best fit, and it's going to have to be a double liquid lock as well. So maybe we just build it within the square. Yeah, I kind of like that. I think that's perfect. And then we'll continue down here. and have to stop right above this oil reservoir. I'll give myself a little bit of space for the future. I think that should be good. It's a little smaller than I'd prefer, but it should definitely meet our requirements for a significant portion of time. The dupes will need a way to get in and out, so I'm going to build a nice ladder system right here, complete with a nice fire pole. Ooh, do I want to use aluminum? Yeah, it's fine. You can tell I've got some decent duplicant labor going. Right now, there's 7 duplicants all working on the sauna. We're also going to have to dig everything out, which this isn't going to be too bad, depending on how many dupes end up getting trapped. So we will see. I'll start off by putting some ladders in here, but all of these are going to end up changing because we'll do some standard 4 high rows. One thing that is going to pose a problem is the water. If when all this water lands, there's fresh water on top of the polluted water, we're kind of okay, because that means the polluted water won't off-gas. But otherwise, I'm going to have to pump all the water out. We also need to get our liquid locks set up. We'll do them both at the same time. I'll end up having to vacuum out this little area here. In fact, I'll probably wait to fill this liquid lock, and that way the gas pumps, when they're siphoning everything out, will also siphon out this area, and then we'll fill it in probably with oil, I'm thinking. And the reason why we do that is because temperatures cannot transfer between vacuum. So there'll be a liquid here and a liquid here. If we had oxygen in here, or another gas, the heat from the sauna that is going to warm the oil up here would then transfer through the oxygen into this oil, and then all that heat would end up escaping out in here. That wouldn't be good for our steam turbine's power generation, nor would it be good for our environment. Before we demolish these wonderful little desks, we're going to make sure to grab the data banks. And we do have 2 demolition experts in Ghost Rider and Drew Bennett, which will give them the ability to do the demolishes. Most of the other parts of the point of interest can just be deconstructed as regular, but the buildings themselves normally require that demolitions expert. I don't know why the devs chose to do that, because all of the other buildings can be deconstructed by normal dupes. And you might think it's because they hide some nice resources in this. Well, this computer desk is made of steel, but we're not going to get any steel back, because when you demolish something, it just disappears into the ether. I've managed to get a small mop started. It would be absolutely wonderful if I could actually mop up this entire business. I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but especially considering there's 600 kilos on this side. But the carbon dioxide keeps blocking the water from flowing, which is actually kind of helping. Keep mopping, buddy. You've got it. Amazingly enough, we're almost there. I don't know if this is going to be a good thing or a bad thing, because now instead of using a liquid pump to move the water around, I'm going to have to use duplicant labor, and they're going to be moving a lot of bottles. And we did it! Way to go, dupes! So we have a couple bottle emptiers for all the polluted water. We also have one for our regular water, although we don't have a lot of room here. The only ones we'll have to worry about is the crude oil. But remember, I wanted to fill these locks up with oil, so this might actually work out well. If that oil is not enough, though, I do have a pitcher pump down here in what's left of this biome. So now it's just a matter of getting everything swept up down here. Most of it doesn't matter, but of course all the polluted water bottles and all the slime has to go. Where did 26 kilos of polluted oxygen come from? Let's move this right here. And I just realized I might want to save some of this water because it'd be great to turn all of this into steam. So I'm going to go through the painstaking process of uncanceling the sweep on all the regular water bottles. Actually, what would be smarter? Let me just put a water bottle emptier right here. And I'll make sure its priority is a little bit higher than the one in our base, so they'll use this bottle emptier first. Alright, dupes, let's see how good you are. Let the record show it is cycle 509. And I suppose while the duplicants are doing that, I can start siphoning out all of the gas. We'll go with 4 gas pumps, should be plenty. We'll vent these 2 to go up there, and then these 2 will vent over here. Not that it makes too big of a difference because they're high pressure gas vents, but it will help because each line can only hold 1 kilo worth of gas. I'm gonna need a little bit of power. Lead is right up our alley. It's been just over 10 cycles and we're almost there. Not only with the sweeping, but also the vacuuming. We've got about 3.5 grams in every tile, so we're getting there. We did not have enough oil to completely fill this lock, which is not a big deal because now I'll just enable auto bottle, let the dupes drop off oil, forget to unenable auto bottle, and then mop up all the excess oil that spilled over. And to help out with some more dupe labor, we managed to find a herald. This herald has skills in decorating, ranching of course, and supplying. Nothing special on the traits, so they look like a perfect dupe to me to help out around the colony, probably doing a lot of the tidying up and eventually some masterworks decorating. Welcome to the colony, dupe number 17, Delamuga. Now we already have one masterworks decorator on the colony in Snacky, so for the time being Delamuga is going to go directly in to the carry, and then we'll be able to grab them their hat with their second skill point. We've got very little gases left in here, so I know the game's getting ready to do its reverse vacuum thing. We have vacuums around all of the gas pumps, but it'll just slowly form a vacuum in a corner and then spread throughout the entire area. It's one of the mysteries of ONI, really. You can see all of this area here is a vacuum. Let me speed it up, see if we can watch it live. Right now, half the sauna is a vacuum, and despite the fact that there's no more gas around any of the gas pumps, the game is slowly getting rid of all of this atmosphere. And we were almost done. I am so glad I caught that on video. It's like the carbon dioxide lock disappeared, so then all of this oxygen came rushing out. I could probably help this process out by deconstructing this tile, so none of the carbon dioxide can just sit there. And I suppose in the meantime, I'll start building regular ladder rungs. And these are the levels that we're going to be using. It gives us 4 tile high all the way to the bottom, and then a 2 tile high here on top. And now the game's going to do the exact same thing, except this time with the oxygen. Except there's still a little bit more carbon dioxide in there. I'm not sure if it's going to delete it or just let it out as well. Nope, it's letting it out as well. Second verse, same as the first. This time I'm going to get a little bit more aggressive, remove both of these tiles, and then these 2 tiles as well. Now no gases should get held up in here. We finally have a completely vacuumed out area, clean as a dupe's bottom. Now we can fix our liquid lock here. We'll throw some oil in there. And now I've got some other things we need to do. I'm going to leave the gas pumps in there just in case I mess this one up. But it's time to add the power spine down the left side of the map. Well, more specifically, just the left side of this sauna. But I want to be able to do that and not be transferring heat from the inside of the sauna to the outside of the sauna. I'm going to use heavy watt conductive wire and heavy watt conductive plate. That way I never have to upgrade it. And plus I have plenty of lead to be able to build it with. And by putting in the conductive wire now, I'll know where the joint plates need to go. For instance, one joint plate is definitely going right there. And then I'll start digging all this out and put the other joint plate. Same goes with down here. Put one joint plate right there. And by waiting for the interior of the sauna to be vacuumed out, I can work in here without having to add another liquid lock on the outside. Yeah, you may have to add some more tiles here and there, just in case you need more room. But taking a look at it, I know I'm going to have a block here. So I think the next block is going to go right here, which means these tiles are going to need to be insulated. So let me do that now. Something like this. The insulated tiles on the outside don't really matter, but I think it adds to the aesthetic of the sauna. The reason why it doesn't matter is because, well, there's going to be a vacuum in between here. And then we'll build it out backwards. One joint plate there. Another joint plate on the inside. I'm going to make this one a little bit more durable. In fact, I'll just make it out of steel just in case. Throw in the conductive wires. And then once this is built, I can reseal it up. Wait a minute. I wanted the thing to go straight up. It may take us a little bit more space, but I think it'd be cleaner in the end. Let me see what I can come up with. And there we have it. Now I'm doing just a little bit of cleanup here, and we have a vacuum in between the 2 joint plates, which we do for the same reason that we have a vacuum in between these 2 crude oil liquid locks. Now what I have to do is figure out how I'm going to get the heat out of the leaky oil fissure, which erupts at 326 degrees, while also putting a pump in. Because I was thinking about putting metal tiles and sort of surrounding this whole thing all the way down to the bottom. And that way, when all of our natural gas generators are on and they're leaking all of their polluted water down here, we'd have a nice hot medium for them to turn into steam. The issue is getting it to that point because our liquid pump, even made out of steel, can only go up to 275 degrees. I know once we have the sauna operating and we have all the steam turbines, it wouldn't be a problem. we'd be able to siphon out the heat without breaking our liquid pumps. But for this initial point is what I'm worried about. The other issue is lead melts at 327.5 degrees. The leaky oil fissure is less than a degree away from being hot enough to melt lead metal tiles. I want to use lead metal tiles because, well, I have 161 tons of lead. It just seems like the right thing to do. So I think in the end, I'm just gonna sort of test it out. I do have water here, and I'm sure this is eventually going to boil it, but I don't necessarily want steam quite yet. So I'm gonna put a couple more lead tiles in here and vacuum this up so there's a nice thermal barrier in between these two places. This whole interior will turn into steam, and that's not quite what I want yet. Yeah, I don't think there's anything I'm gonna have to worry about. Just these two lead tiles have been able to absorb just about all of the heat this crude oil has, and I suppose it's because it's only erupting at 290 grams per second. So I'm just gonna build this out the way I intended and not worry about this steel liquid pump at all. So we finished analyzing the leaky oil fissure, and it's one of the weird sort of geysers. Notice that it's going into dormancy. Its eruption period is 600 seconds out of every 600 seconds, and it's active 0.3 out of every 0.4 cycles. Whereas if we go over to this natural gas geyser, we can see that we have about 55 cycles of dormancy, and the eruption period is about half of a cycle every cycle. So yeah, the leaky oil fissure is going to go dormant, but it's not going to stay dormant for very long. Notice these lead tiles are already up to 100 degrees, so while it doesn't put out a lot of oil, it's still a steady supply of heat, which is just what we're looking for. So I put the steel liquid pump in there with a couple of hydro sensors, and that way if I decide that I want the oil to only come up to this point, or if in the future I want it a little bit higher, I'll have some options. All that's really left for me to do is get rid of the ladders from the inside that I will not be needing, and then seal the whole thing up. With the whole idea that we're going to have a sort of oil reservoir. And not only that, is we're going to be able to siphon the heat out of that oil, which will help power the steam turbines and keep that polluted water flashing into steam. Now, depending on how often those natural gas geysers run, the leaky oil fissure and its heat may not be able to keep up, but remember the natural gas geysers are going to create heat as well, so we should be okay. I know there's a lot of different ways to skin this pip, but let me know in the comments below what you would have done with a leaky oil fissure in your sauna. And there we have it. Oh look, we're in our dormancy period, and we have 13 seconds left. In the end, I decided to put another layer of tiles down here at the bottom, and that way more of the heat would be able to inject itself into the tiles, because what we're going to do next is build an entire platform of metal tiles. That way when the natural gas geysers are producing their polluted water, they hit metal tiles instead of insulated tiles. And all of these metal tiles on this bottom are all connected, so they should share heat decently. Now lead's not nearly as good as say something like aluminum, and now that I'm looking at it, considering we have a gold volcano on this planetoid, I should have built the whole thing out of gold. I was trying to be thrifty. The gold has a thermal conductivity of 60 and a specific heat capacity of 0.12, and lead has a thermal conductivity of 35 and a specific heat capacity of 0.128. What do you think? Should we rebuild it? And on that point, our secondary planetoid has an aluminum volcano, which means we have an infinite supply of aluminum too. Let me queue up 5 tons of aluminum and do this the right way the first time, because aluminum is the bee's knees at 205 thermal conductivity and a specific heat capacity of 0.91. The upgrade is complete. All these metal tiles are now aluminum, and despite the metal tiles coming in at around 40 degrees, they're already up to 125. Even a little hotter up here. Our little crude oil bucket is sitting at 133 degrees, so I think it's about time to introduce all this water to that heat. Now, it's going to take a while because not only do I have to add more water, I'm also going to have to put a bunch of temperature shift plates, and all of that water and those temperature shift plates are going to absorb a lot of temperature. These saunas are so expensive for this specific reason. We're going to use igneous rock, which reminds me, do we have a regular volcano on this planetoid? We do not. All the water in the world and no infinite source of igneous rock. What about over here? Nope, we don't here either. That's a little unfortunate. Well, I know the 1,000 tons of igneous rock that we do have will serve our stone hatches for quite some time, It would have been nice to have that renewable resource. Looks like we're gonna have to get that from another planetoid. I should be using the Blueprints mod, but I've been disabling it because I've been playing that Chaos Crusade colony that is up to around cycle 3500. I've been trying to run with as few mods as possible. And for those wondering why we end up putting all these temperature shift plates, imagine that each one of these 800 kilo temperature shift plates is a little thermal battery. They will quite literally end up holding a lot of the heat being transferred around the sauna in the form of steam. One convenient thing about having metal tiles on the bottom is we can put temperature shift plates all the way to them, which you then might further wonder, why is that important? Well, notice all this steam is sort of flashing or condensing back into water and then turning back into steam. We don't want that to happen when this thing is up and operational. In fact, we want the whole sauna to be as temperature regulated as possible, with all the thermals on this side being similar to the thermals on this side. This crude oil is dropping in temp. It's around 104 degrees. It's gonna take it a little while to turn all these temperature shift plates and all of this water into steam, but I don't know about you, but I can't think of a better montage than this. It's probably gonna take a little while though, so I'll see you in a little bit. Well, I think that's enough of a montage. Just about the entire time I was shedding tears while watching all of our igneous rock go goodbye. As you can see, the water's at 90 degrees, and so are these temperature shift plates. The temperature shift plates directly connected to the tiles or another building will still transfer temperature, as will the temperature shift plate right above it, because the temperature shift plate is sensing this water. But this temperature shift plate up here is still sitting at 28 degrees, this one's 32. So it's going to take a very long time, because even when the water gets hot enough to boil, it's going to flash the steam and then go hit one of these temperature shift plates, dump its heat off, condense back into water, and fall right back down. So we're going to accelerate this process using a couple of different methods. First, we're going to grab a nice kiln. Kilns tend to get hot, and while this will not be our final kiln position, because we're going to want it next to our metal refineries, it will work for now. The next thing we're going to do is research superheated forging and grab the glass forge. And with the glass forge, we're going to be able to queue up a bunch of molten hot glass. This glass comes out ridiculously hot, and when it does, it's going to drip down through here, land in this water, and heat up the surrounding area. Now, glass can't hold a lot of temperature, partly because it comes out in 25 kilo chunks, but we're going to keep letting it drop and heat up the surrounding area until, well, I run out of sand or we create a bunch of steam here. We can see the glass here is at 1935 degrees. We're going to let it drop out, and then it lands, instantly creating a little bit of steam. But remember, all of that heat is being absorbed by these temperature shift plates. So this process is going to take a little while. Now we have the glass forge being powered. It has a requirement of 1200 watts through our primary power spine. But we didn't have any power generators in here, so we just grabbed off of this conductive wire that runs all the way to this power station. It'll have to do for now. I'm also pumping all the oil out of this biome right into some liquid reservoirs so that we can continue our power spine all the way up. Speaking of power, while the gas forge is running trying to make this into a sauna, I think it's about high in time we start creating some real power, or at least get the meat and potatoes started. I will use a heavy watt plate here, so I'll need to remove this heavy watt conductive wire. And as I do construction, I am going to be sweeping all this debris out, because this debris is cooler than our desired temp. So by keeping it in here, we're just making it more difficult to turn this place into a sauna. First and foremost, I wanted to make sure that our natural gas generators were going to be in power plants so we can get the 50% more power generation. I think we're going to save one power station for the petroleum generators and one for the natural gas generators. I have no idea if we're going to actually be able to use that much power, but this is what we've got. Of course, I don't know if I want to put petroleum generators in this sauna, because right now this is a clean sauna. If you add petroleum generators, they're going to generate a bunch of carbon dioxide, whereas the natural gas generators, I can send the carbon dioxide somewhere else. Either way, for now, we'll start with the natural gas generators and go from there. Oh, what a perfect fit. We can get 5 natural gas generators in there with the power control station. Fun fact about the power control station is you can make it out of anything you want because it has no overheat temperature. So this power control station is made out of lead. But don't you dare try to put a lead critter drop-off in here because it does have an overheat temperature. I don't know why. Another amazing way to create steam is using ye olde thermal aqua tuner. We're going to need one in here eventually because we're going to need the cool steam turbines that are going to be up here. The issue is I don't want it down here. I want it up here. This 2-tile high row is perfect for things like aqua tuners and smart batteries. But there's no atmosphere up here, so if I wanted to put an aqua tuner up here, I'd have to make a little bowl full of water so we could flash it up there. As it is, we're starting to get a little bit of steam, but it's still going to take a significant amount of time, so maybe I'll get the thermal aqua tuner ready, and that way, when there is finally steam up there, I can turn it on. Now, it just so happened that this design ended up with 6 steam turbines, and normally you can only have 5 connected to an output. In this case, I don't think we're ever going to get hot enough to need all 6 steam turbines running at once. So even though each steam turbine is able to output 2 kilos worth of water, which makes 12 kilos too much for the 10 kilo pipe, I think we're still going to be okay. I may end up changing this in the future, but for now it should work just fine. I'm also going to end up putting the steam turbines on a smart battery as well, and that way we can decide to run the steam turbines when our grid needs power. Additionally, we're going to need a sensor to make sure it doesn't get too hot in here. I think right down here will be just fine, and we'll also connect it up to the steam turbines. And the reason why you do this is if we decide to only run the steam turbines when the batteries get down to 20 and they never get down to 20, we still eventually need the heat taken out of here. So this thermo sensor is going to fire a green signal when we set it to say above 200 degrees. So then no matter what this battery says, if it's above 200 degrees inside the sauna, well, the steam turbines are going to turn on. We've made some progress. We've installed the metal refinery and the rock crusher. We've activated the power control stations to use lead. And as you can see, all of our natural gas generators are going to be producing 1200 watts. I may not even do the petroleum boiler for quite some time because I have no idea how long it's going to take for this colony to end up using this much power. Now, right now with the natural gas generators, the carbon dioxide is just going to come right out here to a high pressure gas vent, and the carbon dioxide is going to drop. Remember, we have a carbon skimmer down here that only has been operating less than 1% in the past 5 cycles. I'm not too worried about it, but I do need a bunch of gas storage for the natural gas ingest. Right now, it's just coming in through here. And to tell you the truth, a good spot for that might be this 3-tile high space right here. Ooh, maybe right here. I am going to end up moving the kiln, so I think this is a good spot for it. And we are getting more and more steam in here. One of the things that's preventing it is I keep adding more and more buildings, which is lowering the overall temperature. Now for the metal refinery, I'm going to be trying something different in this colony. I've started using buffer tanks. I've seen the light, but I'm not doing it for the thermals, which is what a lot of people want to use it for. I'm using it so I have ready amounts of liquid to be able to dump back into the metal refinery. So as long as there's a dupe standing there, it can keep churning through that metal. I'm also extending the radiant pipes on the output all the way over here because I want to be generating as much heat in the sauna as possible. And since I don't have any steam turbines over here, I figured extending the pipes over here would help these steam turbines pick up the heat being emanated from the radiant liquid pipes. I've never done it before, so, we'll see. But because I don't have a lot of room in this sauna, I'm going to be utilizing some of these new storage tiles. Now, I personally haven't had much luck with them, but during a couple of my live streams over on Twitch, plenty of community members say they've been working just fine for them. So I'm going to tinker around with them. But because they require data analysis research, I'm gonna have to put in the virtual planetarium. Now, I already have 73 data banks from the geysers that we've analyzed and the point of interest buildings that we've inspected. Make that 74. And this is only going to take 30. So before we even head to space and use the orbital data collection lab, we'll be able to knock out a couple of these tier 4 researches. As for the coolant we're going to be using, we're going to use some of the crude oil I've collected from that biome and put in liquid reservoirs. This one's got 4,200 kilos in it, which will be perfect for this loop here. We're almost done with the research, and that's good. We only need 2 more points of materials study, and I'm looking forward to it because I need to turn these rad bolt generators off because they're on the same line that our wonderful glass forge is. So now we don't have any steam, although we do have rain, which is kind of like a close cousin to steam. And I have to rebuild this gas reservoir because I didn't use my wonderful new blueprint, the golden gas reservoir. And this is the first time I'm going to be able to use this tab menu here. So let's see what happens. Oh, that is just magical. We can go back and forth. We now have disco gas reservoirs. Now if only I can get liquid reservoir blueprints. But sadly, Clay doesn't have any of those quite yet. I know they're coming, but we definitely need our colorful buffer tanks. So here's the storage tiles here. They say they have an overheat temperature, so just in case, I'm going to use steel. But the idea is I'm going to be able to have one auto sweeper in here that's going to be able to grab just about anything we need. About the only thing that would make these little storage tiles better is if they had automation, sort of like the smart storage bin. Well, that, and if I can get them to work correctly. But now I'm going to put the storage tiles all on this side as well, so I can load up my lime. And now all 3 levels will have access to similar tiles. For instance, I can have all my lime loaded up into this storage tile when the rock crusher creates it, and then an auto sweeper here will be able to grab it and throw it inside the metal refinery. Plus, it saves a lot of space. Here's what the whole system looks like if it ends up working. Right now, I really like the look of it. We'll start up here at the kilns. We have a couple of smart storage bins. This smart storage bin is collecting ceramic. It has some automation connected to it, and it says, because we set it to 1,000 kilos, when it's full, send out a green signal, which we have a NOT gate flipping it to red, which will then turn this kiln off that's set to forever ceramic. Now this auto sweeper is able to get clay and coal from these storage tiles, except I flipped them around and I did not want to do that. I want the coal next to the clay. And this one's supposed to say refined carbon like it does. Likewise, this one's going to say the same thing. Keep creating refined carbon, as long as this smart storage bin is not full. Now I'm going to need to set this smart tile to a 6. The reason being is, this is where the refined carbon's coming from for this auto sweeper to grab and throw into the metal refinery for our steel recipes. But the kiln will keep creating refined carbon until this smart storage bin is filled, and this smart storage bin is not going to get filled until this storage tile is full. We also have storage tiles up against this wall that have our lime, which is being loaded in from the rock crusher recipes, crushing poke shell molds, eggshell, and fossil. We also have a storage bin here that loads all the molds, the fossil, and the eggshells until somebody gets around to using the rock crusher. The rest of the storage tiles have random metal ores: gold amalgam, aluminum ore, cobalt ore, and iron ore. Now the one disadvantage of this system is they only hold 1 ton, which isn't too bad, and we have the storage tiles set on 4, so whenever they're not quite as full, the dupes will bring fresh ore around. Now the metal refinery is still in a vacuum, so we can't quite fire it on yet, not to mention the fact we still don't have our coolant, nor do we have the power structure yet, because I still need steam all the way up here before I can turn these natural gas generators on. Another reason why I have the metal refinery loop extending all that way is because, remember, I'm a little worried about our ability to maintain the amount of heat required to keep flashing the polluted water. Because while the natural gas generators generate heat, that polluted water is actually going to bring down the temperature inside the sauna. Well, here's an example of exactly what I was worried about. We have 80 kilos worth of lime sitting down here. It is within range of this auto sweeper, yet it's not loading it into the storage tile. There are no active errands on the lime, for instance a dupe carrying it to somewhere else, so I'm not exactly sure why the auto sweeper won't pick the lime up and put it in there. So far, this system here seems to be working just fine. Oh, never mind. Apparently we already have 1 ton of lime sitting in the storage tile. And you can tell from these little circles. Look, apparently we don't have a full tile full of coal. Where did I get 1 ton of lime? As soon as this metal refinery is in some sort of environment as it tries to create all the iron and steel. We finally got the steam up to the level of the metal refinery, so I'm starting to churn through some iron ore to iron recipes, which is really going to start injecting some heat in here. You can see the oil's about 120 degrees. Actually, it comes out at 175. And before it even gets back into the tank, it's down to 110. That is a lot of extra heat that's going to be dumped into the sauna. So I think it's about time to bring some more water in. In fact, let me also grab any salt water around the map and brine that may be sitting in buckets. The steam is pretty much spread throughout the sauna. We just need a little bit more. We've got about 1.4 kilos down here and about a half a kilo at the top. In fact, I'm going to make this process even quicker by spreading these radiant liquid pipes all the way here to the bottom. And that way, any water we do drop down there is guaranteed to heat right up. I don't know why I've never thought about using really large radiant liquid pipes inside the sauna. I've always done sort of localized pipe systems, but this makes sense, especially in a setup like this. In fact, why don't I run it through the metal tiles instead of just through the water itself? In the meantime, I am really starting to appreciate this system. Snacky just finished a piece of steel. Now the auto sweeper picks up some iron. It's going to grab some more lime. And since we're using the buffer tank, they can just keep at it. And even though the water that we're dropping onto these tiles is probably sitting 30 to 40 degrees, it's flashing pretty quickly. I think I just found a new favorite setup. And as I wait for more steam pressure to build in the sauna, I'm setting up another system, and this one is going to be to bring all the sand that the rock crusher creates and put it into a conveyor receptacle for this auto sweeper to grab and throw it in the glass forge. We're also going to set a storage bin here. We'll say glass and perhaps 5 tons. That might be a little excessive, but I've already created so much glass, it's probably going to fill it outright anyways. And then I'll take molten glass and say forever. And then the automation will pick up. Until this smart storage bin is filled, this glass forge is going to keep creating more. Then all we have to do is say sand in the conveyor loader, connect it with a little bit of power, and then we have the glass forge set on forever until the smart storage bin is filled. In other news, even though we haven't turned on the natural gas generators, these steam turbines finally have enough hot steam to turn on, and the reason why is because this battery is telling them to. But in the meantime, because I don't want those steam turbines running, I'm just going to disconnect it from the battery. I'm sure I will not forget. And we'll just have this thermosensor run those steam turbines whenever the place gets hotter than 200 degrees. Right now, we're sitting at almost 2 kilos of steam up here and 3 kilos down here. In just a few more kilos, I'll be able to turn the natural gas generators on. I just want to be confident that none of the polluted water is going to off-gas. I can also go ahead and turn on the thermo aqua tuner since we have enough steam pressure up here. So we're going to set those steam turbines to stay at around 25 degrees. We have polluted water in this cooling loop, and that's also going to help create even more heat inside the sauna. Well, 5 kilos seems good enough to me. Fingers crossed, let's plug in the natural gas. This line is coming from all the way over from the natural gas geyser that we tamed quite a long time ago. I'm just going to say as long as it is above 500, you can go ahead and pump. Now there is a little bit of polluted oxygen in there, so I will have to repair some damage on the natural gas geyser once it eventually pulls that polluted oxygen out of there, but that won't be a big deal. And I think next episode, we're going to start tapping into this 417 kilos per tile natural gas geode. That's going to be fun. We have the natural gas geyser set on 9060. The natural gas comes in first into the ingest tank and then into the natural gas generators. And now we can finally disconnect this spine from all those coal generators that we were piggybacking on before. Which means something else we're going to be doing next episode is putting a bunch of power transformers in here and plugging in the rest of the colony. Here's that repair errand now. I'm thinking eventually we're going to add a sweepy or two down here to gather all the salt, or more for the long term, all the dirt that's going to be created from the polluted water that's flashing on these tiles. So there you have it, our completed industrial sauna and power brick. If you're trying to figure out something to comment below, for engagement, let me know what kind of success you've had with the storage tiles and where else you're using them in your colony. So until next time, much love, happy gaming, and I'll talk to you soon.